Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, a lot has been said, and I think it's important that we reflect on it, and I'll try not to repeat it. But there are some things that you really need to know, and I think you already know this. Redistricting is a very hands-on process. You think about your own legislative experience and the idea that somebody would hand you a bill, tell you to file it and pass it, and not read it, not lay it out, not change it, not amend it, not let it come back in conference and negotiate it. But yet, on this congressional map, that's exactly what's happening here. And you may be okay with that, but I know that when this leaves the legislative chamber and leaves the executive mansion, it goes to a federal court. And I've said it all the time that we are all equal in federal court. And they're going to want to know about these procedures and these deviations from procedure and all of the things that have been done through acts or omissions. And I hope you have the answers, because I don't understand how we can have a map that eliminates 2 minority opportunity districts in Bexar County, and we have 2 members from Bexar County on the redistricting committee, but we couldn't have a public hearing in Bexar County, which is a lot closer to get to than Harris or Dallas County. That's a flag. I've never seen a redistricting process where there was a lawyer appointed to represent only the views of the chairman and not the committee. I've been here long enough to see that happen before. That dog didn't hunt very well. Chair Darby will tell you about that. When he tried to represent that the lawyer for the redistricting committee only spoke to the chairman, both sides threw the lawyers out and almost the chairman. And we could not resume again until both sides had their own counsel so they could work through this process. That didn't happen here. I know there are court records and there are discovery items from past redistricting that really gets into people's thoughts, gets into their emails, gets into their personal emails, their text messages, those Gmail accounts. And I think what's happening here is because of those lessons, we have now removed this redistricting process from outside of this building, take it somewhere else, let this map be drawn, dropped into the committee, maybe a tweak or 2, perfecting amendments, and then brought to this floor where it's not going to be debated. And the first real question you ask, the answer is I don't know. All I know, my intent is to create 5 new seats. Political performance is legal. Yes, it is, but it's not legal on the backs of the minority community. And those are the answers we have tried to get. But you can't hide all your intentions with the words political performance. You cannot say that this map is race blind and only reflects political performance, but you have 444 precinct cuts, exactly that many, because there's a 370 report that will tell you that if you've been through voting rights and voting rights litigation, you can run a report that'll tell you that there are 444 precinct cuts. That is not an accident. That is not a drafting error. That is a mission. That is a laser focus on drawing maps and redesigning precincts in the process to get to your mathematical outcome. No answers here. We are told that the chairman told the lawyers to follow the law, but then he asked you to table amendments saying that we would honor Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. We will follow Jingles, which is U.S. Supreme Court case law. Told you we don't need those. We've told you, hey, if this outcome is very, very reminiscent of other things we've tried to do, courts will set this aside. Let's just revert to the current map. No, we're not going to do that either. I don't know how we can be so confident in our legislative work. Before we started the day, we were told that a court just set aside the 10 Commandment monument that was just passed in the regular session. So you tell me that the hearings are transparent, that our process was pure, but we are shielding from disclosure who's drawing the map, don't know the name of the lawyer, maybe know the name of the law firm, don't know where it's coming from, you don't have access to the lawyer, you don't even get a lawyer. Everybody who has taken this microphone and have given you their opinion as to what their lawyers have said, they are paying for them. But yet this committee and this chairman, with a lawyer that reports to him and him only, the taxpayers get to fund that legal representation. Everybody else has to go at it on their own. That's not fair. That's not transparent. So what I'm curious about is, if you won't tell us what you're doing, if you want to shield from disclosure the very things that you think are going to get you in trouble, you have to understand that sometimes your actions by themselves will be the evidence that we will use when we get to take this to another forum. I'll give you a real good example. Just this morning, we started this debate. We were told by Chair Hunter that CD 18 was created to create a 50% black CVAP district because the current one didn't have it. Well, newsflash, CD 18 didn't need to be a black CVAP district by 50% because it already behaved like one. It performed like one. There was no need to change it, but this is the very thing courts will look at when they want to know, well, if you're getting into racial discussions about the CVAP of this district, what were you thinking? What went into that? Because the performance analysis will show that it did not need to have a 50% CVAP, black CVAP, to perform and have African Americans elect candidates of their choice. We were told, and you heard it from the previous closing argument from Rep. Gomez, that South Texas and Texas is becoming more and more of a Republican-leaning state with Latino voters. Okay, I'll take you at your word for that, except your actions say otherwise. Because we know CD 29 was already a 60% HCVAP district, but that was knocked down to a 40% HCVAP district, and instead, CD 9 was created with a 50% HCVAP district. So the two statements don't pencil. If Republicans in political performance do so well with Latinos, why not run a Republican in CD 29 with a 60% HCVAP? I'll tell you why. And every election outcome for the last 20 years will tell you why. And so you cannot claim that you're creating Hispanic opportunity seats when you are taking true performing citizen voting age population districts and replacing them with nominal districts that may not perform, because under that standard, CD 9, CD 29, CD 35 should all have 60% Hispanic CVAPs. And so again, for the 5 redistrictings I've seen, there have been the entire Texas delegation of Congress in this building. And in fact, we had one member today who wanted to come here, and they said, well, we can't let him on the floor because he has a vested interest in the outcome. I remember the days, Ms. T, I know you do too, Joe, you do too, where you'd have this whole building surrounded by the Texas delegation, and you could not move an elementary school enrollment zone without having them come down like a sack of potatoes. I remember a time they would open this door so that we could watch the Senate gavel a map while we gavel theirs, because there is no trust in redistricting. We have not heard a peep from the Texas delegation about what they think about this and all the lines that have been impacted, except for those who've objected. And yet we're to accept the fact that this process, as controlled from the outside, is a legitimate process, is a transparent process, is a public process. I think not. And so you can cast your vote however you want. The only thing I will tell you in closing is, if you remember that committee, don't delete your emails. If you participated in those discussions, don't delete your text messages. Because that's where we're going to go next. And like I said, you may win today, but we will have our opportunity in federal court. Whether you vote for this or not, you know it is wrong. There is a way to do this. And I don't think there's a single member in this body, all of you, both sides of the fence, we could lock this door like it's locked right now. We can fight all day. Nobody here is scared of that. Nobody here is scared of that. But to take this mic and to lay out this bill and tell the public that you're doing their work in a public and transparent and a fair process, and all you care about is just swaying political outcomes, that's not what this is. There was an easier way to do that. But you cannot and will not do that on the backs of the minority community. And that's why I object to this proposal, and that's why I ask and urge you to vote no.